I was running through the burning streets when I saw him throw Maeglin from the walls. Tuor grabbed him by the throat, lifted him like he weighed nothing, like he was a child instead of a full-grown elf warrior, and hurled him off the battlements of our city. Maeglin didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't fight it, just fell, silent, arms spread, almost peaceful, 300 feet down onto the rocks below, where the flames were already consuming everything, where dragons had melted stone into rivers of liquid fire, where bodies were piled so thick you couldn't see the ground beneath them. I watched him fall and thought, he wanted this. This was easier than living with what he'd done, because Gondolin was burning. The hidden city, secret for 400 years, safe for 400 years, impregnable for 400 years, home to the last free elves in Beleriand, was dying. Dragons were tearing through our streets, Glaurung the Golden leading them, breathing fire that turned white stone to slag. Balrogs were breaking down our towers, their whips of flame cutting through walls that had stood for centuries. Armies of orcs were slaughtering everyone I'd ever known, everyone I'd ever loved, everyone who'd thought they were safe behind mountains that couldn't be crossed. And it was his fault. Maeglin, Lord of the House of the Mole, Master Smith, nephew of King Turgon, the elf we'd all trusted, the elf we'd all respected, the elf who'd contributed so much to our city over decades of service, the elf who'd told Morgoth exactly where to find us, who'd drawn maps, who'd revealed the hidden way, who'd pointed out every weakness in our defenses, who'd sold us to darkness for the promise of possessing a woman who'd rejected him. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand what Gondolin was, what we were, what Maeglin destroyed, because I knew him, worked with him for 30 years, liked him even, watched him create beauty with his hands, watched him lead his house with wisdom, watched him earn respect and trust from everyone around him, and never saw it coming, never suspected that the darkness in him, inherited, fed, grown over decades, would become so deep he'd betray everyone. Never imagined one elf's obsession could doom thousands. This is that story. The story of how paradise fell because one person couldn't let go, couldn't accept rejection, couldn't live with being told no by the woman he loved. The story of Maeglin, the elf who loved too much and destroyed everything, and the price we all paid for his darkness. My name is Galdor. I was a craftsman in Gondolin, a metalworker. I spent 30 years in the forges beneath the Tower of the King, making armor and weapons and beautiful things for a city that would never need to use them in war. Or so we thought. Gondolin was paradise. I mean that without exaggeration. It was the most beautiful place I've ever seen, before or since. The kind of place you'd imagine elves building if they had unlimited time and resources and absolute safety. The hidden city, built in a valley surrounded by the encircling mountains, the Echariath. Mountains so high their peaks scraped the clouds, so steep and treacherous that nothing could cross them without being seen. So remote that most of Beleriand didn't even know they existed. One way in, one way out. The Hidden Way, a secret pass known only to King Turgon and a handful of trusted guards who'd sworn oaths of silence unto death. Eagles watched from the peaks, Manwë's servants, eyes of the Valar seeing everything that approached. Nothing could sneak up on us. Nothing could threaten us. We were untouchable, unreachable, unknown. King Turgon had founded the city after the Daegor Bragolok, the Battle of Sudden Flame, that terrible night when Morgoth had broken the siege of Angband. when rivers of fire had poured from his fortress, when Glaurung and the dragons had emerged fully grown, when everything the Noldor had built over 400 years of siege had burned in a single night. Turgon had seen it coming somehow, had prepared, had been building Gondolin in secret for decades before the battle, and when the siege broke, he'd led his people into the mountains, into safety, into hiding, and for 400 years we'd stayed hidden while the rest of Beleriand burned. Morgoth's spies had been searching for us from the beginning, sending scouts into every corner of Beleriand, questioning prisoners, torturing anyone who might know, offering rewards, making threats. But the secret held. No one talked. No one betrayed us. No one except Maeglin. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. The city itself, oh, the city, built in a valley of green grass and flowing water. The river Orfolch Echor running through it, fed by 7 streams from the mountains, gardens everywhere, trees and flowers that bloomed year-round because the valley was protected from harsh weather, the air always warm, always perfect. White towers rising toward the sky, dozens of them, each one more beautiful than the last, built from white stone we'd quarried from the mountains and shaped with care over centuries, towers that caught the sunlight and threw it back in ways that made them glow. The greatest was the Tower of the King, in the center of the city, taller than all the others, white stone inlaid with silver. At the top, Turgon's chambers and the great hall where he held court, where decisions were made, where the lords of the 12 houses gathered to guide the city. Streets paved with white stone, smooth, clean, safe to walk day or night because crime didn't exist here. Everyone had what they needed. Everyone contributed. Everyone belonged. Houses built from stone and wood. Some small and simple, some large and elaborate, but all beautiful, all crafted with care, because we had time here. Time to make things right, time to make things beautiful, time to create instead of just survive. Fountains everywhere, the sound of water always in the background, pools reflecting the towers and the sky, places to sit and think and rest. The 12 houses of the Gondolindrim, each one led by a lord, each one focused on different crafts and skills. The House of the King, Turgon's own house, the administrators, the leaders, the House of the Fountain, warriors and defenders, led by Ecthelion, the best fighters we had, the House of the Harp, musicians and poets, led by Salgant, though he was more interested in wine than warfare, the House of the Swallow, archers and scouts, led by Doilin, the House of the Heavenly Arch, scholars and lore masters, the House of the Mole, miners and smiths, led by Maeglin, and more, each one contributing, each one essential, each one part of the whole. We had everything we needed: food from our gardens and fields, water from the river, stone from the mountains, metal from the mines, skilled craftsmen in every trade, artists, musicians, teachers. Children were born here who'd never seen war, never seen orcs, never experienced fear or hunger or loss. They grew up in paradise thinking this was normal, thinking the whole world was like this. We were wrong to let them think that, wrong to believe it ourselves. But for 400 years, it felt true. For 400 years, we lived in peace while the rest of Beleriand burned, and we thought it would last forever. I first met Maeglin maybe 20 years after I'd arrived in Gondolin. I'd come to the city as a refugee, escaped from one of the eastern kingdoms when it fell to Morgoth's forces. Arrived through the hidden way, barely alive, starving, wounded, traumatized. Gondolin had taken me in, given me a home, given me purpose, given me 20 years of peace to heal. By the time I met Maeglin, I was 40 years old, young for an elf, still learning my craft, working in the forges under the tower of the king, making armor mostly, swords, spearheads, things we stockpiled but never used because we never fought. Maeglin was younger than me, maybe 25, but already brilliant, already a master smith despite his age. He'd come to Gondolin with his mother Aradhel, Turgon's sister, when he was just a boy. That whole story was dark and complicated. Aradhel had left Gondolin decades earlier, wanted to see the world, wanted to visit their brother Fingon's realm in the east. Turgon had tried to stop her, but she'd gone anyway. She'd gotten lost in Nan Elmoth, the dark forest where Eöl the Dark Elf lived. Eöl had found her, trapped her, not with chains or cages, but with, I don't know, magic maybe, manipulation, control. He'd kept her there, married her, had a child with her, Maeglin. For years, Aradhel had been essentially a prisoner. She'd tried to escape multiple times, failed. Eöl was skilled in the ways of shadow, could track her, could find her, could bring her back. But finally, when Maeglin was old enough to help, they'd escaped together, fled to Gondolin. Aradhel remembered the way even after all those years, brought her son home to safety. Eöl had followed, somehow found the hidden way, pursued them into the city itself. Turgon had captured him, offered him a choice, stay in Gondolin forever or be executed. The secret had to be kept. Eöl couldn't be allowed to leave knowing where we were. Eöl had chosen death, but spitefully tried to kill Maeglin with a poisoned javelin as a final act of hatred, saying if he couldn't have his son, no one would. Aradhel had thrown herself in front of the javelin, taken it in the chest, died slowly from the poison while Maeglin watched helplessly. Turgon had executed Eöl, thrown him from the Caragdur, the walls of the city, 300 feet down onto rocks, the same death Maeglin would eventually receive. So Maeglin came to us carrying all that weight, mother dead because of him, father executed in front of him, darkness in his blood inherited from Eöl, trauma carved into his soul. But Turgon had taken him in, embraced him, given him a place, made him lord of the House of the Mole when he came of age, trusted him, loved him as a nephew should be loved. And for years, decades, Maeglin seemed fine. He was talented. Oh, he was talented. The best smith I ever worked with. Had an instinct for metal that went beyond training or practice. Could look at raw ore and know exactly what it would become. Could shape steel like it was clay. Could create weapons and armor better than anything I'd ever seen. His work had a quality to it, a perfection. Every sword balanced just right. Every piece of armor fitted exactly. Every tool crafted to do its job better than you'd think possible. I learned so much from him. Just watching him work taught me more than years of formal training. He was quiet, though. Intense. Kept to himself more than most. Would spend hours in the forges working on a single piece, perfecting it, refining it. Never satisfied even when it was already better than anything anyone else could make. His eyes were grey, almost black in certain lights, sharp, intelligent, like they were always calculating something, always measuring, always looking for angles and possibilities. But when he spoke, he was thoughtful, never cruel, never dismissive. If you asked him a question, he'd give you a real answer. If you needed help, he'd provide it. People respected him. The House of the Mole respected him. He led them well, organized mining expeditions into the mountains to bring back ore, managed the forges efficiently, contributed enormously to the city's stockpiles of weapons and armor. Turgon trusted him completely, relied on him, brought him into councils, asked his advice on defenses and fortifications, and Maeglin gave good advice, built better walls, designed better gates, strengthened the city in ways that made sense. For 30 years, he was exactly what he appeared to be, a valuable member of our society. A skilled craftsman, a wise leader, someone you could trust. I worked alongside him for all those years, spent countless hours in the forges together, shared meals, talked about metalwork and design and the craft we both loved. I liked him, genuinely liked him. Thought he'd found peace in Gondolin despite the darkness of his past. Thought he'd found purpose and belonging. I never saw the obsession growing in him. Never saw the darkness feeding on itself. Never suspected what he would become. None of us did. The darkness in Maeglin had a name. Idril Celebrindal, Silverfoot, Turgon's only child, the Princess of Gondolin, the most beautiful Eleth in the city. Silver gold hair that caught light like water, grey eyes clear as spring sky, grace in every movement, intelligence in every word, kindness that made everyone around her feel seen and valued. She worked with refugees, helped newcomers adapt to the city, made sure everyone had what they needed, organized aid, coordinated resources, did it all quietly without seeking recognition. Everyone loved her. How could you not? And Maeglin loved her most of all. Not gentle love. Not the kind that makes you better. The kind that consumes. The kind that becomes the center of your entire existence until nothing else matters. She was his cousin. First cousin. Daughter of his mother's brother. Their blood was too close. In our culture, marriage between first cousins was forbidden. Not just frowned upon. Absolutely forbidden. The bloodlines were too close. It wasn't done. Everyone knew Maeglin loved her. It wasn't subtle, wasn't hidden. Couldn't be hidden. The way he looked at her during festivals, like she was the only person in the city, like nothing else existed when she was near. The way he'd find excuses to be near her, volunteer for tasks that would put him in her presence, show up at events she attended, even when his house wasn't required to be there. The way his whole body would tense when she entered a room, like every nerve was suddenly alive, like every sense was focused entirely on her, the way he'd watch her. Just watch. For hours sometimes if he could manage it. Studying her face, her movements, her expressions, it was uncomfortable to witness, made people uneasy. But what could we do? You can't command someone to stop loving, can't legislate away obsession. Idril was kind about it. Never cruel, never mocking. She'd acknowledge him when necessary. Be polite, professional, but distant, making it clear without saying it directly that nothing would ever happen, that she didn't feel the same way, that he needed to move on. But Maeglin didn't move on, didn't find someone else, didn't channel his feelings into his work or his duties or anything productive. Just kept loving her, kept wanting her, kept building the obsession deeper and deeper like he was forging it in the same fires where he made his swords. I watched it happen over the years. Watched it get worse. Noticed the changes in him. He'd work in silence for hours, then suddenly stop. Stare at nothing. Lost in whatever thoughts were consuming him. His hands would still. His breathing would change, like he was somewhere else entirely. "You all right?" I'd ask. "Fine," he'd say, voice flat, empty. Then he'd return to work with hands that shook slightly, with movements that were too rough, too aggressive, taking out whatever he was feeling on the metal in front of him. Other times he'd be euphoric, almost manic, working with incredible speed and skill, creating masterpieces in hours that should have taken days. Those were the times Idril had smiled at him, or spoken to him, or acknowledged his existence in some small way. It was like watching someone addicted to something, the highs and lows, the obsession, the inability to function normally. "You need to let this go," I told him once. We were alone in the forges late at night. He'd been working on a sword for hours, ruining it, starting over, ruining it again. "Let what go?" He didn't look at me. "Idril, this fixation you have, it's not healthy. I love her. She doesn't love you back. She's made that clear. She doesn't know what she wants." His voice was tight, controlled. "She's young, confused. If she'd just give me a chance. She's given you chances, years of chances. She's not interested. Because she doesn't understand." He finally looked at me, those grey eyes blazing. "I could make her happy. I could give her everything. I could." He stopped, breathing hard, shaking. "I love her," he said again, quieter now, almost broken. "I've loved her since I first came here, since I was a child. She's all I've ever wanted." "Then you need to want something else," I said, "because this is destroying you." He laughed, bitter. "It's already destroyed me. This is all that's left." He went back to work. I left him there, alone in the forge, working on a sword he'd never finish. I should have done more, should have gone to Turgon, should have forced the issue somehow. But what could I have said? "Your nephew is in love with your daughter, and it's making him unstable?" Turgon already knew. Everyone knew. And love isn't a crime. Obsession isn't grounds for exile. We couldn't punish him for feelings he couldn't control. So we watched, worried, hoped he'd eventually move past it. Then Tuor arrived. Tuor was mortal, a man, descended from the House of Hador, one of the 3 houses of the Edain who'd been allied with the elves since the First Age began. He'd been guided to Gondolin by Ulmo, the Vala of Waters, one of the powers of the world who still cared about the fate of Beleriand. Ulmo had appeared to him in visions, shown him the way, guided him through dangers, brought him to the hidden way. And Turgon, for reasons only he could explain, had welcomed him, given him a place in the city, made him part of the court. This was unprecedented. Mortals didn't come to Gondolin, ever. The secret was too important, too sacred, too necessary for our survival. But Turgon believed Ulmo had sent Tuor for a reason, believed there was a greater purpose, believed that keeping him was the right choice. Tuor was impressive. I'll admit that. Had to admit it, even though I knew what was coming. Tall for a mortal, maybe 6.5 feet, broad-shouldered, strong, moved like a warrior who'd been fighting his entire life. Grey eyes, dark hair, a face that had seen hardship but hadn't been broken by it. Handsome in that rough, weathered way mortals sometimes achieve. He spoke well, intelligently, had wisdom beyond his years despite being only 20-something in mortal terms, carried himself with confidence without arrogance. People liked him, genuinely liked him. He was respectful of our culture, interested in our history, willing to learn and adapt. Within months, he'd integrated into the city, learned our language better, trained with our warriors, contributed. Idril noticed him immediately. Of course she did. How could she not? He was exotic, different, brave enough to have crossed Beleriand alone, chosen by a Vala, interesting in ways that elves who'd lived in the same city for centuries couldn't be. They started talking, then spending time together, then courting openly. And Turgon, incredibly, gave his blessing. His daughter, his only child, the Princess of Gondolin, heir to the kingdom, courting a mortal, a man who'd be dead in a few decades, who couldn't give her forever, who'd leave her alone for the rest of her immortal life. It made no sense to most of us, but Idril was happy, happier than I'd ever seen her, and Turgon loved his daughter enough to allow it. Within 2 years they were married. The wedding was beautiful. The whole city celebrated. Music and dancing and joy. Gardens decorated with flowers. Fountains running with wine. Everyone dressed in their finest. A princess of the Noldor marrying a mortal man. It was unprecedented. Romantic. The kind of thing songs would be written about for ages. 2 had married before, Beren and Luthien. But that had been different circumstances, different time. This was happening here, now, in our city. Maeglin attended the wedding. I watched him. Couldn't help it. Couldn't look away, knowing what this was doing to him. He stood in the crowd, far back, away from the center, dressed in formal robes that looked wrong on him, like armor would have fit better. Watched Idril marry Tuor in front of everyone. Watched her smile. Watched her say the words. Watched her kiss a mortal man with joy and love and choice. Maeglin's face was stone, completely expressionless, frozen, like he'd carved it from the same marble we used for statues. But his hands, I was close enough to see. His hands were clenched into fists so tight his knuckles had gone white, nails digging into his palms, drawing blood that dripped onto the white stone at his feet. He stood there for the entire ceremony, never moved, never looked away, just watched, silent, bleeding. The moment it ended, the moment Idril and Tuor were declared married, Maeglin left, turned and walked away. Didn't stay for the feast, didn't offer congratulations, just left. I found him in the forges hours later, alone, working on something, a sword, hammering it with blows that were too hard, too fast, too violent, the metal breaking apart under the force. Maeglin. He didn't respond, just kept hammering, again and again and again, each blow harder than the last. You're going to hurt yourself. Good. The word came out between blows. Good. Fine. Whatever. This isn't helping. Nothing helps! He threw the hammer. It hit the wall with a sound like thunder. Nothing has ever helped! He stood there, chest heaving, hands shaking, staring at the ruined metal in front of him. She married him, he said quietly. She married a mortal. A man who'll die in 40 years. A man who isn't even close to worthy of her. That was her choice to make. It was the wrong choice. His voice was rising again. I could have given her everything. I could have made her happy. I could have loved her forever. Actually forever. Not just 40 pathetic mortal years. I could have... He stopped, swallowed, fighting for control. I loved her, he said, voice breaking. I loved her more than anything, more than my life, more than this city, more than the entire world, and she chose him. I'm sorry. He laughed. Terrible sound, like glass breaking. Sorry. Yes, we're all sorry. How helpful. He picked up another piece of metal, started working again. Slower now, methodical. But his hands were still shaking. Leave me alone, he said. Maeglin, leave me alone. I left. What else could I do? Walked out of the forge, left him there in the darkness, working, bleeding, breaking. Should have stayed, should have said something else, should have done something. But I didn't know what. None of us did. So we left him alone with his obsession and his rage and his darkness. and it grew. Over the following months, Maeglin changed. The warmth that had been in him, the small amount that remained, burned away completely. What was left was cold, hard, sharp, dangerous. He still fulfilled his duties, still led the House of the Mole, still worked in the forges, still attended council meetings, but he withdrew from everything else, stopped socializing, stopped attending festivals, stopped doing anything that wasn't strictly required. People noticed, worried, but no one knew what to do. "Give him time," Turgon said, when some of the other lords expressed concern. "He's heartbroken. He'll heal." But he didn't heal. He festered. I'd see him sometimes, walking alone through the city at night, moving through shadows, face set in that stone expression, eyes distant. Once I saw him standing outside Idril and Tuor's house, just standing there, in the dark, watching their windows. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Nothing," he said, walking, thinking. "You shouldn't be here. It's a free city. I can walk where I want, Maeglin. I'm not going to do anything." His voice was flat, dead. I needed to see. Needed to know she was happy, that she made the right choice. And he was quiet for a long moment. "She did. She's happy. I can see it, even from here." He turned and walked away, left me standing there, watching him go, feeling helpless. The darkness in him was complete now, consuming, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Maeglin started ranging outside the city more frequently. This had always been part of his role. The House of the Mole managed mining operations. We needed ore, needed metals, needed stone. Someone had to go into the mountains and get it. Maeglin had led these expeditions for years, would take guards, go into the Echariath, find veins of ore, harvest what we needed, return. Dangerous work, but necessary. And Maeglin was good at it. Knew the mountains, knew where to look, never lost anyone. Always came back successful. Turgon trusted him completely, gave him free rein to go when needed. Maeglin was his nephew, his sister's son, a lord of the city. Loyal, or so we thought. The expeditions became more frequent after Idril's marriage. Maeglin would volunteer to go, would insist on leading personally even when others offered, would be gone for weeks at a time. "I need to get out of the city," he'd say when anyone asked. "Need space. Need to work. The mountains help." People understood, thought the distance was helping him cope, giving him room to heal away from constant reminders of Idril and Tuor. We were wrong. When he returned from these trips, he was different, more withdrawn, more secretive. He'd report to Turgon, deliver the ore and materials, then disappear into his private chambers. Wouldn't talk to anyone, wouldn't explain where exactly he'd been or what he'd seen. Just gone dark. I tried talking to him once after he returned from a particularly long expedition. 6 weeks gone. Came back thinner, harder, with eyes that looked haunted. "Where did you go?" I asked. "What happened out there?" "North," he said shortly, "into the high peaks. Found good veins of iron." "You look like you've been through something terrible." He laughed. "The mountains are always terrible, you know that. This is different. You're different." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. No one thinks you're fine." He looked at me then, really looked at me. And for just a moment, I saw something in his eyes. Terror, guilt, shame, pain beyond describing. Then it was gone, shuttered, hidden. "I'm fine," he said again, "just tired. Leave it alone." I didn't leave it alone. Went to Ecthelion, Lord of the House of the Fountain, one of Turgon's most trusted advisors. "Something's wrong with Maeglin," I told him. He's not right. Hasn't been right since Idril's marriage. And these trips into the mountains? Something happened on the last one. Something bad. What do you think happened? I don't know. But he came back different. Broken. Like he'd been through something traumatic. Did he say anything? Give any indication? No, but I know him. I've worked with him for 30 years. Something's wrong. Ecthelion considered. I'll talk to Turgon. But without evidence, without Maeglin actually doing anything wrong, we can't act on feelings and suspicions. Then watch him. Please. Something terrible is coming. I can feel it. I'll watch him. But he didn't watch closely enough. None of us did. Because on one of those trips into the mountains, we'd piece this together later, after everything fell apart. Maeglin had been captured. The orcs had ambushed him and his guards in a pass north of the city. Killed the guards quickly. They never had a chance, overwhelmed by numbers and surprise. But they took Maeglin alive, deliberately, carefully, under orders. Because Morgoth knew. Somehow knew that occasionally someone from Gondolin ranged outside the mountains, had been watching, waiting, hoping, and finally caught one. They bound Maeglin, dragged him north, through the wilderness, through territories controlled by Morgoth's forces, all the way to Angband, to the Iron Hells, the fortress of Morgoth, the place nightmares came from. I don't know exactly what happened there. Maeglin never spoke of it to anyone, took the details to his grave, but others who'd been in Morgoth's dungeons and somehow survived told similar stories. The torture, the pain, methods of breaking people that had been refined over millennia. Morgoth was one of the Valar, had existed since before the world was made, had eternity to perfect the art of breaking will and spirit. He knew exactly where to hurt, exactly how much pain to inflict before backing off, exactly when to offer hope and when to crush it, exactly how to find the weakness in someone's soul and exploit it until nothing remained. Physical torture was only part of it. The pain was terrible, but it ended. Bones healed, wounds closed. The mental torture was worse. The visions, the illusions, showing you everyone you loved dying, making you believe you'd already been there for years, breaking your sense of time and reality until you couldn't tell what was real. Maeglin endured it for weeks, maybe a month. Hard to say. Time worked differently in Angband, and eventually Morgoth made his offer. This was Morgoth's true skill. Not the pain. The pain was just preparation. The real art was the deal, finding what someone wanted most and offering it to them in exchange for betrayal. Maeglin was broken, tortured beyond endurance, ready to do anything to make it stop. And Morgoth knew exactly what he wanted. "Tell me where Gondolin is," Morgoth said. Voice like a god, like the world itself speaking. Impossible to resist. "Tell me how to find the hidden city. Tell me its defenses, its weaknesses, its secrets." "No," Maeglin managed. Still defiant, still loyal, despite everything. "I can make the pain stop. I can let you go. I can even give you what you truly want." "What I want?" "Idril." Morgoth smiled. "You love her. You've always loved her. She rejected you, married a mortal instead. That pain is worse than anything I've done to you here, isn't it?" Maeglin said nothing, but Morgoth didn't need an answer, could see the truth in his eyes. "Betray Gondolin," Morgoth continued. "Tell me how to find it, and when my armies take the city, Idril will be yours. I'll give her to you. Tuor will be dead. Turgon will be dead. Everyone who prevented you from having her will be dead, and she'll be yours. She'll never love me. Does it matter? You'll have her. She'll have no choice. You can spend eternity making her see that you were right, that you deserved her, that choosing Tur was a mistake. The darkness in Maeglin, the obsession that had been growing for decades, the rage at being rejected, the pain of watching her with someone else, rose up and consumed what little resistance remained. He told Morgoth everything: the location, the mountains, the hidden way, the defenses, the numbers, the weaknesses, everything. Drew maps, pointed out exactly where dragons could land, where Balrogs could assault, where the walls were weakest, where Turgon would make his stand. Everything. And Morgoth, in exchange, sent him back, gave him instructions, told him to return to Gondolin, act normal, wait. And when the armies came, when dragons and Balrogs destroyed the city, Maeglin was to seize Idril, capture her, deliver her alive. That was the deal. That was the price. Betray everyone. Doom thousands. Destroy the last safe haven in Beleriand. And maybe possess the woman who'd rejected him. Maeglin agreed. He returned to Gondolin 7 weeks after he'd left, came through the hidden way with a cart full of ore, explained to the guards that he'd been delayed. Bad weather, difficult mining conditions, nothing unusual. Reported to Turgon, gave his accounting, said the expedition had been successful despite the delays. Turgon believed him. Why wouldn't he? Maeglin was his nephew, had been loyal for decades, had never given reason to doubt. But I saw the difference immediately. Maeglin looked destroyed. His face was thinner, gaunt, cheekbones sharp, eyes sunken and ringed with darkness, skin pale like he hadn't seen sun in weeks. He moved carefully, like everything hurt, like his body had been broken and put back together wrong. "What happened to you?" I asked when I saw him in the forges the next day. "Nothing. Long trip, difficult conditions." "You look like you've been tortured." He flinched, actually flinched. "Just tired. I'll be fine." "Maeglin, I said I'm fine." His voice was sharp, desperate. "Leave it alone, please." I backed off. Let him work. Watched him struggle with simple tasks. Watched his hands shake. Watched him stop periodically and stare at nothing with an expression of absolute horror. Something had happened to him out there. Something terrible. But he wouldn't talk about it. Wouldn't explain. Wouldn't ask for help. Just withdrew further. Spent all his time alone in his chambers or in the forges, working on projects he wouldn't show anyone. Stopped attending court functions entirely. Stopped going to councils. Turgon had to send people to fetch him when his presence was required. He avoided Idril completely. Wouldn't go anywhere she might be. Would leave rooms when she entered. Couldn't look at her. People noticed, whispered, worried. "He's gotten worse," Ecthelion told me. "Whatever happened on that trip broke something in him. We need to do something." "What?" "He hasn't done anything wrong. We can't imprison someone for being traumatized. He's a danger. I can feel it." "To who?" "To himself, maybe. But he's not threatening anyone." I wanted to argue, wanted to insist. But what could I say? I had no evidence, no proof. Just a feeling that something terrible was coming. So we watched, worried, waited, while Maeglin counted down the days until he'd betray us all. The attack came 4 months later. 4 months of Maeglin living with what he'd done, carrying the weight of it, knowing what was coming, unable to warn anyone, unable to stop it even if he'd wanted to. I wonder sometimes if he regretted it. If during those 4 months he thought about confessing, about telling Turgon everything, about accepting punishment in exchange for saving the city, but he didn't. Just waited. Let it happen. Because the alternative was admitting what he'd done, facing the consequences, losing even the possibility of getting what he wanted. The attack came at dawn on the Gate of Summer, a festival day, a celebration. The whole city was preparing for festivities, music, dancing, joy. We'd made it through another year safe, another year hidden, another year of peace in a world of war. I was in my house when I heard the screaming, ran outside, looked up, and saw dragons, flying, massive, wings blotting out the sun, fire breathing, Glaurung leading them, the father of dragons, fully grown, golden scales reflecting the dawn light, with dozens of lesser dragons following, smaller but still enormous, still deadly, still capable of burning our city to ash. They came from the north, over the mountains that were supposed to be impassable, straight toward the city like they knew exactly where to go. Behind them, armies, thousands upon thousands of orcs, pouring down the mountain passes like a flood of darkness, armor clanking, weapons raised, screaming war cries in the black speech, hundreds of balrogs, demons wreathed in flame and shadow, each one tall as a building, each one wielding whips of fire that could cut through stone, things that had no names, trolls, wargs, creatures twisted in pits beneath Angband into forms never meant to exist, all of them flowing toward us, all of them knowing exactly where to go, exactly which passes to use, exactly how to reach us. How? Those passes were secret. Those routes were hidden. No one knew them except us. Except someone who'd lived here, who'd walked those mountains, who'd studied the defenses from the inside. Maeglin. The realization hit me like a physical blow, made my knees weak, made the world spin. Maeglin had told them, had given them everything, had brought this nightmare to our doorstep. But there was no time to process it, no time to rage or grieve or understand, because Gondolin was dying. The dragons hit the northern walls first. Glaurung led them, crashed into the white stone with a sound like the world breaking. Breathed fire, not a normal fire, dragon fire, the kind that burns through anything, the kind that melts stone. Our beautiful white walls, crafted over centuries, built to last forever, melted, just liquefied and ran like wax, pooling at the base, creating rivers of molten rock. The defenders tried to fight, archers firing, ballistae launching massive bolts, trying to drive the dragons back. It didn't work. The dragons were armored in scales, harder than any metal we could make. Arrows bounced off, bolts shattered, nothing penetrated, and the fire kept coming, burning through walls, burning through towers, burning through everything. The lesser dragons followed Glaurung's example, landing, breathing fire, tearing through our defenses with claws and teeth and flame. Within minutes, the northern quarter was burning, white stone turned black, gardens reduced to ash, houses collapsing, people screaming, running, dying. The Balrogs came next. I'd never seen one before. None of us had except maybe the oldest elves who remembered the first wars. They'd been stories, legends, warnings about horrors from the ancient days. They were worse than the stories. Demons made of flame and shadow, tall as towers, wreathed in fire that never went out, wielding whips that cracked like thunder and could tear through anything. Gothmog led them, the Lord of Balrogs, Morgoth's captain, the greatest warrior of darkness since the world began. He was huge, taller than the others, burning so bright you couldn't look directly at him. Voice like a volcano erupting, presence that made reality itself seem to warp around him. He carved through the city like we were nothing, like our warriors, trained for centuries, equipped with the finest weapons we could make, brave and skilled, were children with wooden swords. The House of the Fountain tried to stop him. Ecthelion led the charge personally. The best warriors we had, hundreds of them in silver armor, weapons blessed, training perfect. Gothmog killed 50 in the first minute. Just killed them. His whip cracking, his sword cutting, fire burning. They couldn't touch him, couldn't get close, couldn't even slow him down. The rest of the Balrogs followed his lead, spreading through the city, destroying everything, setting fire to buildings, collapsing towers, slaughtering anyone who tried to fight. The orcs poured in behind them. Thousands, tens of thousands, filling the streets, killing anyone they found, taking no prisoners, showing no mercy. This wasn't a battle, wasn't a siege, wasn't war. This was extermination. Morgoth had sent everything, every dragon, every Balrog, every orc, everything at his command, not to conquer Gondolin, but to erase it, to destroy it so completely that nothing would remain, so that the hidden city would become a memory of failure. And we were losing. The 12 houses fought back, each one mobilizing, each one defending their districts, coordinating as best they could in the chaos. But we weren't enough, weren't strong enough, weren't numerous enough, weren't prepared for dragons and Balrogs and armies that outnumbered us 10 to 1. I grabbed a sword, joined the defense, didn't even think about it, just reacted. Fought orcs in the streets, killed 3 before my training failed, and 1 got through my guard, opened my side, long cut that bled badly, fell, hit the street, blood pooling under me. Thought I was dead. Someone grabbed me, dragged me. One of the defenders pulled me toward the Tower of the King, where refugees were gathering, where we were making our last stand. I looked back as he dragged me, saw the city burning, saw dragons circling, saw Balrogs everywhere, saw Gondolin, paradise, the hidden city, home for 400 years, dying, and knew it was Maeglin's fault. The Tower of the King was under siege, Balrogs at the gates, dragons circling overhead, orcs surrounding it completely. Just a matter of time before they broke through. Inside, refugees crowded every room, thousands of us, all that remained of tens of thousands who'd lived in Gondolin. Children crying, wounded moaning, everyone terrified. Turgon was there, in the great hall, armor on, sword drawn, giving orders, organizing the defense, refusing to flee, even though we all knew it was hopeless. The city will fall, Ecthelion told him, blood covering his armor, sword broken. We need to evacuate, get people out while we still can. There's nowhere to go, Turgon said. The passes are blocked, the enemy is everywhere. Tuor built a tunnel, Ecthelion said. A secret way out. He's been preparing for this for months. Suspected something was coming, even if he didn't know what. A tunnel? Where? Under the city, leading south, away from the armies. If we move now, we can get people out. Turgon looked around, at the refugees, at the children, at what remained of his people. Do it, he said. Evacuate, I'll stay. Buy you time. My king! That's an order. Get them out. Save who you can. People started moving toward the tunnel. Organized chaos. Guards leading, protecting, moving as fast as possible while under siege. That's when I heard the screaming from above. Idril's voice, high, terrified, calling for help, from the upper levels of the tower, from the battlements, and Tuor's roar of rage in response. I forced myself up, wound in my side screaming, climbed the stairs, following the sounds, others following me, found them on the highest battlement. Maeglin had Idril, had grabbed her, was dragging her toward the edge, toward where he could throw her off, or jump with her, or deliver her to the Balrogs below. His face was twisted, insane, eyes blazing with decades of obsession finally breaking free. "She's mine," he was screaming. "She was always supposed to be mine. I did all of this for her. I betrayed everything for her." Tuor was there, sword drawn, trying to get to her. But Maeglin was using Idril as a shield, positioning himself so Tuor couldn't strike without risking her. "Let her go," Tuor said, voice deadly calm despite the situation. "Let her go and we'll talk." "Talk?" Maeglin laughed, manic, broken. "It's too late for talking. The city is burning. Everyone is dying. Because of me. Because I told them. Because I showed them how to find us." "You did this?" Tuor's voice was horrified. "You betrayed us?" "For her." Maeglin shook Idril. "For her. Because she's mine. Because Morgoth promised she'd be mine if I—" He stopped, realized what he'd said, what he'd admitted. Everyone on the battlement stared at him. Comprehension dawning, horror spreading. He'd betrayed us, sold us, destroyed everything. For an obsession, for a woman who didn't love him, for a deal with darkness that promised him the one thing he wanted. "You killed us all," someone said, voice thick with rage. "For her? She was supposed to be mine." Maeglin's voice broke, tears streaming down his face. "I loved her, and she chose him." He looked at Tuor with pure hatred. "You took her, you stole her. She should have been mine and you took her." "She chose me," Tuor said. "She made her choice. She never belonged to you." "Then she'll burn." Maeglin turned, started to throw Idril off the edge. Tuor moved, faster than I'd ever seen anyone move. Dropped his sword, charged, grabbed Maeglin by the throat. They struggled, for a heartbeat, balanced on the edge, both trying to overpower the other. Then Tuor lifted him. Just lifted him. Used his mortal strength, used his rage, used everything he had, and threw Maeglin from the walls, hurled him off the battlements like he weighed nothing, like he was garbage being discarded. Maeglin fell, silent, not screaming, not fighting, almost peaceful, like this was a relief. 300 feet down, onto the rocks below, onto the exact spot where his father, Iol, had died decades earlier, where the Caragdur claimed everyone who betrayed the city. His body hit with a sound I'll never forget. Breaking, shattering, destroyed, dead. I stood there, watching, feeling nothing, no pity, no sorrow, no regret. Just rage, pure, absolute rage. He'd done this, all of this, every death, every scream, every burning building, the end of paradise, the destruction of everything we'd built over 400 years, because he couldn't accept rejection, because he loved someone who didn't love him back and made that everyone else's problem, because his obsession mattered more than thousands of lives. We escaped through Tuor's tunnel. Not everyone, maybe 1,000 of us, out of tens of thousands who'd lived in Gondolin. The rest died, fighting, burning, crushed under falling towers, torn apart by orcs, consumed by dragon fire. The city fell completely. The towers collapsed. The gardens burned. The fountains ran with blood instead of water. Everything we'd built, every beautiful thing, every achievement, every hope for the future, destroyed. Morgoth's armies made sure nothing survived, tore it apart stone by stone, burned what would burn, broke what wouldn't, left nothing but ruins. By dawn the next day, Gondolin was gone. 400 years of safety and beauty and peace, erased in one night, because one elf betrayed us. We fled south, those of us who survived, reached the havens eventually, found what safety we could. But Gondolin was the last great elven kingdom in Beleriand. With it gone, the war was essentially over. Morgoth had won. It would take another 50 years and intervention by the Valar themselves to finally defeat him, to drag him into the void, to end the First Age. But Gondolin fell that night. Fell because of Maeglin. Fell because of obsession and darkness and one person's inability to let go. I'm old now, ancient beyond measure. Gondolin fell over 6,000 years ago by the reckoning of men. I survived, sailed west eventually, found peace in Valinor, lived the rest of my immortal life in a paradise that was real this time. Not built on hiding, not dependent on secrets. But I've never forgotten that night. Never forgotten watching my city burn. Never forgotten the faces of friends who died because Maeglin couldn't let go. People ask me sometimes, was Maeglin evil? Was he a monster? Was he beyond redemption? I don't know. He was broken, that much is clear. Traumatized by his childhood, carrying darkness inherited from Eöl, consumed by an obsession that turned toxic and destroyed him from inside. Morgoth exploited that, found the crack in Maeglin's soul, the one thing he wanted more than anything, and used it to destroy everything. But Maeglin made the choice, could have resisted, could have died in Angband rather than betray us, could have confessed when he returned, could have warned us, could have done a dozen things differently. He chose betrayal, chose his obsession over everyone else's lives, chose to gamble that maybe, if he helped destroy everything, he'd get what he wanted. Does it matter if he was evil or just broken? Does our distinction matter to the tens of thousands who died because of him? I don't think so. What I know is this. One person's darkness destroyed paradise. One person's inability to accept reality doomed everyone. One person's love, twisted into obsession, fed by rejection, grown into hatred, burned down the world, and we never saw it coming, never suspected that someone we knew, someone we trusted, someone we'd lived with for decades, could betray us so completely. That's the real lesson. Not that evil exists, not that darkness can corrupt, not that people can break under torture, but that darkness can hide, can wear familiar faces, can be someone you work beside every day and never suspect until the moment they open the gates to hell. Maeglin taught me that, showed me that monsters aren't always obvious, that sometimes they're people you like, people you've shared meals with, people who seem fine on the surface while rotting underneath. And that lesson, that warning, is worth remembering, because evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just loves someone too much and destroys everything trying to possess them. Thank you for listening to my story. If you want to hear more like this, of all the great people, places, and events that inhabit the world of Middle-earth, please go ahead and subscribe. It helps the channel more than you can imagine, and helps me continue to make more stories like this.